Yo, what is good, everybody? It is your boy, Golden Falls, Golden What Ifs, whatever you want to call me, and I'm back. This is part two of What If Deku had a rage Quirk. First off, I want to say my apologies for taking a bit of a break. The reason for it is, honestly, I just haven't had a ton of time to record. And when I did have time to record, I had to do some other stuff or record this, record that. And I don't know. It is what it is, right? Life is life sometimes. But, I'm back. Ideally, this is the 2 of 2. This is the finale of this video or of this series. And then the next day or tomorrow, you will get the full version or the movie of this series. And yeah, that's really all I gotta say. So I want to get right into it. So let's get it. Izuku Midoriya has a choice. That choice is to take on either this quirk of what is known as One for All, or continue with the powers that he has. And there's a lot to be said about the powers that he currently has at his own kind of will. Because in his case, he's thinking to himself that this is what he wanted, right? This is himself. This is the power he's worked for forever. And he wonders, does he want to just give that up? Does he want to legitimately kind of decide that he needs someone else's powers to be the hero he wants to be? And he ends up coming to the conclusion that he doesn't want to take on this power. And it's something that is very difficult to swallow in terms of deciding not to actually take on this power, because, well, we all know that the power created, or the power that is coming from All Might himself, would be extremely, extremely difficult to turn down. And, well, Izuku Midoriya would turn it down. But he still would accept the deal with working with, aka also training with, Gran Torino. And this would be a great opportunity for Izuku. And Gran Torino helps him channel the power he already has, utilizing the rage that he can inquire from himself and his surroundings, and kind of make himself in control. Being angry is one thing. Feeling rage throughout his entire body is one thing. But it doesn't mean you can't control it. And that right there is something Gran Torino begins to teach Izuku for the next 3 to 5 days. Teaching him how to actually maintain the rage, but not overuse it to the point where he starts going berserk and starts losing his head and starts going crazy. But all of this that is happening, there's some awkward scenarios that definitely occur. I mean, that rage that he's feeling, I mean, sometimes it gets overwhelming to the point where he even tries to attack Gran Torino with malice. And as he does, Gran Torino has to basically knock him out, kick him in his face, and do all that stuff to make sure he's out cold. And luckily enough, nothing happens to the point where, you know, Gran Torino doesn't get hurt or anything like that, which is always good. Nobody wants Gran Torino to get hurt. And of course, this would eventually lead them to basically getting a ton of training in and even heading off to Hosu City, where this is where Izuku would face off with his first ever like true villain like fight. And he would be facing off with the hero killer Stain. But the whole reason why he'll be even in this situation is because of another student, someone he's worked with, someone who he's been around for a while now, and that is Tenya Ida. He didn't know this and didn't know what was necessarily happening, but he came across the alleyway that it was going down at, and luckily enough, he was able to get just in time in the way so that the hero killer didn't end the life of Tenya Ida. And Izuku, well, he would see this and he would be pretty damn pissed. Pissed that he's attacking his friend, and pissed that basically he is threatening the life of a student or a kid. And he jumps into action quickly, and his rage itself is allowing him to break through the really martial arts defenses of the hero killer and his really unique fighting style as well. But as Izuku is fighting him, eventually he would get cut and he would get paralyzed. But this would only make Izuku even more angry, But Izuku would focus that anger, focus it to a T, to the point where he can feel it flow throughout his entire body, breaking through the paralyzation, but then also utilizing it in a very, very normal way, not in a way of going berserk and all this crazy stuff. He used it in a good way, and he's able to overwhelm the hero killer and almost win. But as he's about to, what seems to win, or, you know, about to quote unquote win, he even gets some extra help from an arriving Todoroki, who Todoroki does his best to back up his classmate Izuku Midoriya, and with them together, they're actually able to take down the hero killer without any casualties at all. Luckily enough, though, Endeavor does take the credit, and they don't get in trouble for anything that occurred, and they would be able to kind of visit the hospital initially, and then head back to their class, or, you know, class 1A once again, preparing for the final exams. Now, this final exam would be an interesting one, because this would put up Izuku Midoriya and Katsuki Bakugo against the number one hero, All Might. Someone that Izuku is very fond of, and someone that Izuku obviously had to deny when involving the idea of utilizing One for All. But still, he's been trying to understand and utilize his rage to a better degree, and utilize the rage that he has basically incurred to really allow himself to be the hero he wants to be so badly. And that's exactly what is going on. That is exactly what is happening. And Izuku Midoriya is preparing himself to take on a threat, or, well, take on a battle like the one he's going to be faced with when he takes on All Might with the help of Bakugo. Now, they are pretty, you know, back and forth, and pretty you know, annoyed with each other. And of course, that does lead them to kind of arguing a little bit and blah, blah, blah. But luckily enough, Izuku's overwhelming strength allows him to somewhat go head to head with All Might, or at least keep up to an extent. And he's able to, for the most part, actually, like, you know, get his head in the game and go be like the bruiser in terms of their duo. And Bakugo plays kind of like that support-like role, leading up with a bunch of explosions and stuff like that. But let's be honest, Bakugo is not very happy about this. He's not very happy at all. He doesn't want to be on the sidelines just helping out where he can. No. He wants to be the number one. And of course, right now, he's not going to be that. But for now, he's going to just give everything he can to help defeat All Might. And after a long-winded battle, they finally get the upper hand. They finally get the upper hand to take down All Might, or at least, you know, put capture tape around him. But Izuku Midoriya's anger continues to still surge, especially with Bakugo talking smack, saying this, saying that. His anger is still flowing and going crazy. But luckily enough, All Might is able to calm him down, telling him to relax and everything is good and fine. And remember the training that he went through. Remember the training that he did with Gran Torino. This would get Izuku to chill out a little bit, but he would tell Bakugo to stay the hell away from him, like, now. And he would just leave as everybody is then watching the rest of the matches, the trainings, and all of the above. And Izuku would be allowed to go to the forest training camp, and while he's training over there, all he is thinking about, all he is doing, and all he is thinking about is basically controlling his rage. But the thing is, things would change drastically, because one day during the forest training camp, eventually they would get attacked. Eventually, an attack on the forest training camp would ensue, and Izuku would go to help a little kid by the name of Koda, and Izuku would face off with a monstrous villain. A villain that seems to be having this overwhelming strength. Something that Izuku will face off with, and something that Izuku will have to give his absolute all to, because this guy, this freak of nature, is not willing to give up any singular inch, and is not willing to give him anything. And it seems like Izuku is going to have to make a choice. And that choice is to do anything in his possible power to make sure that Koda is safe and sound. And that's exactly what Izuku goes to do. But that's not the only thing that he has to deal with, because yes, he is fighting and he is clashing with this monstrous villain by the name of Muscular, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't come with its, disagreements. It doesn't come with its downsides, because Izuku goes head to head with Muscular, and as this fight is happening, as this fight continues to happen, it seems as if things begin to truly break down, because Izuku's power continues to surge just like Muscular's, but Izuku's rage and uncontrollability continues to push forward. For a minute there, he thought he had full control. For a minute there, he thought that he was fine, that he could control it, he can maintain it. But as he thinks this, and as he believes this, he realizes that he's wrong. Because before you know it, when Muscular's mocking the little kid, telling him after he kills this guy, after he kills Izuku, he's going to end the kid just like he did his parents, Izuku's rage cannot stay tame no longer, and Izuku's rage would force him into a feat of frenzy that would allow him to overpower Muscular very, very easily, very easily. But not only would it allow him to overwhelm him, it also puts him at a point of no return, point of no return where he's not thinking clearly. He can't think clearly, and he has no idea what's going on. And before you know it, when everything is settled, when everything is done, Aizawa is there with him, asking the kid what's wrong and what happened, as this giant monster of a man lays there, beaten to nothingness, borderline at death's door. And Aizawa runs over to basically ask Izuku, trying to wake him up, and he does. He gets him out of that frenzy, but he asks him, what the hell just happened? What's going on? How did you get to this point, and what is happening? And Izuku, he doesn't know. And Aizawa would immediately try to get the villain some help, but before you know it, the villain's pulse would immediately sputter and go away, and Muscular would lay there lifeless. And Izuku would stand there in shock, thinking, he did that. He ended somebody. He can't believe it. But of course, Koda looks at it and even tells Aizawa that he saved him. That yes, he did something bad, or in theory bad, but he saved him. In which Aizawa nods his head and says he understands. But there's a line that they're trying to teach, and a line that can't be crossed. And that is that line. Izuku himself is worried now. He's terrified of the idea that he'll lose control, terrified over the idea that he'll lose control to the point where he won't be able to do anything, that he'll lose it, and everybody will get hurt, everyone surrounding him. And he tells Aizawa that he's done. He's done. In which Aizawa's like, what are you talking about? You're done, kid. You don't have to just give up. You don't have to just stop now. But Izuku tells him that imagine if he loses it and loses all control when being around, civilians and people that need their help and all these things. And he tells him straight up, it's not worth the risk. And he understands that Aizawa may think differently, and maybe other people would as well, but he believes that it's not worth the risk, and he believes that this is where it should end. This is where it should stop. And Aizawa tells him, no, that's ridiculous, kid. You can't think like this. You can't, think as if you are some sort of monster. You are not a monster. You were there helping people. You were there trying to help people. You were there saving a kid. And Izuku says that he understands that, but it doesn't change the fact that he did something disgusting, that he did something horrendous, and that he did something that he can never take back. In which, of course, Aizawa sits there and thinks that maybe the kid is right to an extent, and maybe the hero agencies, organizations, and everybody else is going to think the same thing when this thing is brought up to them on what happened. This thing is brought up to them on what happened during the forest training camp. And before you know it, that is a conversation that happens. A conversation about Izuku Midoriya, and a conversation about him still potentially being a hero, but somehow figuring out a way to truly utilize his powers without losing full and utter control. And that is something that nobody knows for sure what they're going to do or what they can do in that regard, but that's what they're trying to focus on. Can they help Izuku, and can they get him to basically, can they basically get him to have full control? And for a while, for like, we're talking weeks to months, that's all they're doing. That's literally his entire thing. He's still studying and doing this and that. He's not allowed to actually, try and go be a provisional hero or anything like that. And all he's doing is working, training, preparing, and trying to get himself under control. Even other kind of support heroes are trying to get him proper gear and stuff like that would keep him tame enough to where his rage doesn't take over and he doesn't fully black out. But all of this, it's going to take forever. It's a process. It's going to take a very long time for him to get to the point that he needs to get to, a very long time for him to be the hero he wants to be. And of course, he doesn't want to wait that long, but he kind of doesn't have a choice. Actually, not kind of, he legitimately doesn't have a choice. He has to maintain what he's doing. He has to continue pushing on what he's doing. And that's exactly what he does. He trains, he prepares, he kind of maintains himself, tries to maintain himself, and tries to do anything in his possible, hands, and his possible kind of will to kind of push through everything, to kind of force his way through everything. And he wants to make sure, and does make sure, to kind of maintain himself to the degree he needs to maintain himself. And yeah, he does miss out and on a lot of things. There's people out there that maybe could have and possibly could have used his help. And shoot, maybe there's a world where he could have helped a lot more and helped to a larger degree. He watched as All Might took on All for One and basically ended in a stalemate. He watched as the League of Villains would escape and do this and do that. He watched as Overhaul, someone that he didn't know about, someone that he didn't really know much about in general, would get away with a lot of things, and luckily enough would be stopped, but would obviously lose the life of Sir Night-Eye, even though, it seems as if Mirio was even more prepared than usual. And with everything, with all of it, with every last bit of it, with everything that's ensuing, everything that is happening, Sir Night-Eye and all the above, everything that is crumbled, it seems like the hero world has to prepare for one last stride, one last thing. And they might be calling on Izuku Midoriya for this specifically. Because before you know it, there would be word about this kind of war that is coming up. A war that is going to be inevitable, and a war that they're going to have to stop. And well, they feel that they're prepared, but how much are they truly prepared? And they might just need every single hand on deck. And as they're kind of thinking about this, as this is kind of going through their heads, a lot of people begin to bring up the idea of bringing on somebody like Izuku Midoriya. It gets passed through the chain of command, and everybody talks about it. Do they bring him on? Is he kind of, gain control enough? And Aizawa brings up the fact that, yes, he can vouch that he is in control to an extent, but he also can vouch that they might just need somebody that's a little out of control to make sure that everybody else is safe. And ironically enough, this couldn't have been even more true, because guess what? As the war would begin, after months would pass and the war would ensue, that's what they would need. They would need a secret weapon. A weapon that the League of Villains knew very little about, and a secret weapon that they only knew that he existed in a way of having a high level of strength. But other than that, they knew nothing else. They knew very, very little about it. So when he stood his ground, when he woke up, or when he kind of landed there, and everybody watched as the other heroes would take on, Shigaraki and all these other villains, Twice, Toga, and so many more, Izuku would stand face to face with a giant monstrous creature in the one and only Gigantomachia. And this was the one time that blacking out is exactly what needs to happen. And he let the rage run wild, because he would go head to head with Gigantomachia, allowing other heroes to stay focused on the mission at hand in terms of capturing and taking down Shigaraki, and they did everything they could to do so. Izuku would be basically taking on Gigantomachia by himself, getting absolutely just destroyed to an extent, but also just living and rushing the rage through him even more and even greater. And eventually, his rage would build up so much that all anybody can see is Izuku Midoriya on top and grabbing onto Gigantomachia, smacking, crashing, and just smacking the hell out of this giant creature and this giant monster. And everyone's thinking, holy shit, I can't believe this is what is happening right now. Like, I can't believe that this is the guy that we all looked at as kind of someone who was a bad kind of hero, someone that was a liability. And Izuku taking on this monster by himself, as the rage would go run wild, as the aura around him would spark, and the heat coming off of his body can be felt from hundreds of meters away. Everybody just really focuses on their own fights, but at the same time, they can't help to look and can't help to think, like, holy shit, this kid is exactly what needed to happen. This kid is exactly what was needed to stop what's been going on, and exactly what it was needed to stop and put a stop entirely to these villains. And before you know it, Gigantomachia would be put down, as Izuku Midoriya would stand on the top of an out-cold Gigantomachia, and he would scream in, not agony, but he would scream this kind of war cry in a way, and he would just shout at the top of his lungs, and everybody would turn heads. Even Shigaraki, who is on his back foot, would have his head turned just a little bit, and he would be in shock. It can't be. That was our monster. That was our end game. That was the end of them all. And you're telling me that he stopped him? You're telling me by himself he stopped him? And he can't believe it. Shigaraki's in shock, and so is every villain on the board right now. And before you know it, all the other villains would follow suit. Shigaraki would be the last one standing, but with everybody together, everyone prepared, and everyone working hard to kind of, take on and press forward, it seems as if Shigaraki realizes now that things are crumbling, and he tries to get away, tries to do something, but his little idea, his little prison break, his little war idea would crumble in his own hands, just like the decay that comes from his fingertips. And Izuku Midoriya, frankly, yes, he would be seen still as a hero to an extent, but he would still be seen as a monster. This is the same kid that fought a monstrous creature in Gigantomachia, but also is the same kid that ripped what seems to be hero society in shreds. Made everybody question what this kid was. Made everybody question if he'll ever be a proper hero. But Izuku Midoriya, he realizes now that he doesn't have to be a proper hero. No, he doesn't have to be like All Might. What he needs to be, exactly what he needs to be, is exactly what he is. He is the secret weapon. He is the weapon among weapons. He is the monster that slays and takes down monsters. He is the monster that will stand in the face of another one and not blink at all. And that right there is his place in hero society. And yes, he does continue his training regulate his anger and his rage, and he continues throughout the next 3 years while he's at UA. Continues training, continues working, but a lot of people, a lot of agencies, when they bring him on after all the years of training and all of that, when they bring him on as a weapon, as a secret weapon that in a controlled environment they can unleash because they're terrified of him. Now, to an extent, can Izuku control his anger? Of course. Izuku's able to control his anger, even being a hero, controlling it to an extent to maintain that decent strength that he has. But it doesn't change the fact that everybody else will always be afraid of him. It doesn't matter what he did, what he does, and what he's going to do. Izuku Midoriya's rage, they'll always look at it like it's going to get the best of him. And maybe, just maybe, they're not so wrong. Maybe they're not wrong on the idea of it getting the best of him, because before you know it, I'm sure it will. Because Izuku Midoriya, he will always put himself in the acts of danger and always put himself right in the limelight to save as many as possible. And you can't always expect the unexpected, and you cannot always predict what is going to happen in a world like theirs. Because before you know it, you never know what would crumble. You never know what could happen. But what he does know is, secret weapon or not, the frontliner or not, this person that they use to fight monster versus monster, he knows deep down inside that he is still a hero, even if everybody else around him doesn't look at him that way. But with that said, that is the end of this story, the end of What If Deku Had a Rage Quirk. I'm sorry that I've been delaying for quite a while in terms of videos. That's my fault. I mean, I had a combination of family over and this and that, and everything kind of becomes jumbled. So it's been really difficult. I'm sorry about that. But I'm going to try to be a little bit more consistent. I'm going to do my best. Trying to figure out how I want to schedule things out to make sure that, I'm good and I can get things out at a proper time. But I hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you guys enjoyed the series. And that's all I got to say. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope all y'all have an amazing day. Later.